At just 12 years old, Sidney Lewis was one of the youngest known soldiers to serve on the front lines during World War I. While most boys his age were attending school and playing with friends, Lewis was carrying military equipment and living in the deadly trenches of the Western Front. Born in England in 1903, Sidney Lewis was only a child when the First World War broke out in 1914. Like many young boys of the era, he was fascinated by the soldiers marching off to war. The conflict was often portrayed as a noble adventure, and patriotic enthusiasm spread across the country. In 1915, Lewis made an extraordinary decision. He lied about his age and enlisted in the British Army. Astonishingly, recruiters accepted him. Whether they were fooled by his appearance or simply failed to check his age properly remains unclear. What is certain is that a 12-year-old boy soon found himself wearing a British uniform and preparing for combat. Before long, Lewis was sent to France. There, he entered a world that few adults could endure, let alone a child. The Western Front was a vast network of trenches stretching across Europe. Soldiers lived in muddy ditches surrounded by barbed wire, artillery fire, and constant danger. Rats infested the trenches. Disease spread easily. Every day brought the possibility of death. Yet Sidney Lewis remained there, among grown men. His most famous experience came during the Battle of the Somme in 1916. The Somme was one of the largest and bloodiest battles in human history. Beginning on July 1, 1916, British and French forces launched a massive offensive against German positions. The first day alone was catastrophic. The British Army suffered nearly 60,000 casualties in a single day, making it the bloodiest day in British military history. Somewhere amid this chaos was 13-year-old Sidney Lewis. Imagine the scene: exploding shells shaking the earth, machine gun fire cutting through the air, wounded soldiers crying out for help, entire units disappearing within minutes, and among them stood a boy who was barely a teenager. Remarkably, Lewis survived. But eventually, the truth about his age reached military authorities. When they discovered that he was far younger than military regulations allowed, he was removed from service and sent back home. His story, however, was not unique. Thousands of underage boys managed to enlist during World War I. Some claimed to be 18 when they were only 15 or 16. Others, like Lewis, were even younger. Recruitment systems were often overwhelmed, and birth certificates were not always checked carefully. Many boys were driven by patriotism. They wanted to serve their country and prove their courage. Others sought adventure, believing the war would be exciting and glorious. The reality was very different. The trenches exposed young soldiers to horrors that would leave lasting scars. Many witnessed death on a daily basis. Some suffered physical injuries, while others carried emotional wounds for the rest of their lives. As the war continued and casualties mounted, armies became increasingly desperate for manpower. This allowed even more underage volunteers to slip through the system. By the end of World War I in 1918, more than 16 million people had lost their lives, and millions more had been wounded. Among those who served were countless boys, whose childhoods were interrupted or ended by war. Sidney Lewis was one of the fortunate few who survived and returned home. He later lived a long life and became a symbol of the young soldiers who found themselves caught up in one of history's greatest tragedies. Today, his story reminds us of a powerful truth. When nations go to war, it is often the youngest and most vulnerable who pay the highest price. The image of a 12-year-old boy standing in the trenches of the Somme is more than just a historical curiosity. It is a reminder of the human cost of war and of the childhood that Sidney Lewis and so many others were forced to leave behind.